homeschool life. My name is Erin, and this is my YouTube channel where I share the messiness of my messy life. Today I'm having a sick day. It finishes off a really good sick week. When the girls came back from their dad's last Monday, Bethany was already sick, and on Tuesday Abby got sick, and then the whole week was just lots of cuddling in bed and reading. We're reading Jurassic Park. Lots of watching movies. It was actually a really lovely week if you can kind of forget about all the bodily fluids. If you forget that part, it was a great week. So then of course by Friday I started getting sick. And anytime there's a thing that goes through, I get it last and I get it the worst. So I crashed hard Friday night. And so the girls' dad came and picked them up on Saturday. They were supposed to be here all weekend. Well, they were supposed to go to Girl Guide camp this weekend, but they were too sick to go to Girl Guide camp. So we canceled that and they just stayed with me. But then when I got sick, then their dad offered to come and pick them up, which is a thing that's really good about the relationship that I have with their dad, our custody arrangement. We're both really reasonable and flexible about it. You know, you hear a lot of really horrible stories about people not wanting their partner to have access to the kids. We don't have that problem. If he wants them, he can have them. If I want them, I can have them. If neither of us have strong feelings about it, the kids get to decide. So when I started getting sick, he said they could go there if they wanted to, and they said that they wanted to, so they went. Which means that now I am in Dawn's house, and Dawn is taking care of me. On Friday night, he made bone broth from one of our chickens, and on Saturday, he made a great big batch of chicken noodle soup for me, so that's what I'm living on right now. I'm living on chicken noodle soup and ginger lemon tea. So this video is just going to be a talky one. That pretty bit at the beginning with the snow, that's probably the only pretty bit that you're going to get in this video. It's just going to be me talking. I have a lot of things on my mind lately, a lot of things swirling around. I'm using social media more. I'm doing a pretty good job of not consuming more social media. I'm just producing more social media. But that also does mean that I'm getting more comments from new people who don't know me. So it's interesting to read what people say. Like today I got a comment that said unschooling is the most stupid philosophy of all philosophies in the whole world. So, you know, that's the kind of thing a person wouldn't say to your face, you know? That's a behind your back or on the internet kind of thing. And the thing is, like, I'm totally open to debating with people about the pros and cons of the different parenting philosophies or homeschooling philosophies or education philosophies, I guess I should say. I'm okay with debating education philosophies. I don't need to. Unschooling has its pros and cons, just like other forms of homeschooling have their pros and cons, and the mainstream education system has its pros and cons. I'm not going to say that mine is the best for your kids or for your family or for your household or anybody. I'm just going to say that this is what it looks like in our house. That's really it. I'm just here to give people more information for which to form their opinions. I'm not telling people what they should do. So I'm totally okay to debate unschooling with people, but when you start with something like that, when you start with it is the stupidest thing I've ever heard of about something that is obviously kind of important to me, it's really hard to have a normal conversation with that, because that's a really heated thing. Like that automatically puts a person on the defensive. I'm also listening to this. There was a big fuss around a New York Times. Everyone said it was an article, but it wasn't. It was a podcast, an opinion podcast. And the question was, did feminism ruin the workplace? And so I'm listening to this podcast, and I find it really frustrating, the results of people being in an echo chamber. And it means that you can't, it's even hard to have a conversation with people when we don't even agree on the same definitions to the terms. And so like this discussion that they're having in this podcast, they're using the words woke and the words feminism and toxic masculinity. And the way that they're using those words are not aligned with the definition that I would give for any of those words. I think that there's a I talked about it in one of my shorts recently, this sort of like Conservatives will only talk to conservatives. They won't talk to liberals. Liberals will only talk to liberals. They won't talk to conservatives. Religious people only talk to each other. They don't ever talk to atheists. Atheists only really ever talk to each other. They don't talk to religious people. So we all have these ideas about how the other people think that aren't based on actually talking to the other people. And so we all have these really different definitions, like their definition of feminism was that it was about women want to be seen as identical to men, as the same as men. That's not what feminism means. That's not what feminism means. Or that woke is about guilt. That's not what woke means. It's not about guilt. So I find it's so interesting. We can't have conversations about the same thing because we're using the same word to mean different things. I think it's kind of related to the straw man argument. I got a really good explanation of what a straw man argument is and what a steel man argument is. And now I'm just like, I see it everywhere. Like, okay, so a straw man is, let's say I want to argue against, I don't want to argue against anything. If I want to argue against feminism, I'm going to describe feminism as something straw manning is defining feminism as something kind of stupid so that it's easy to knock it down because it was stupid. Steel manning is, if you're opposed to feminism, defining feminism as the strongest version of feminism that you can find, so that when you're knocking it down, you're doing so concisively. Because you've actually represented the strongest argument that feminism has. If you're taking on the strongest argument that feminism has and dismantling it, then you've done something impressive. But if you take if you describe the weakest version of feminism that you can come up with, then it's really easy to knock it down. And that is what people do to each other's arguments. They simplify it and make it dumber so that it's easier to make fun of. And it means that when the same word can mean different things to different groups of people because we're all in our own little bubbles. We're all in our little isolation bubbles. So if 2 weeks ago, the video, I said I was an atheist in the video, and a lot of my viewers were surprised that I was an atheist because they had a picture in their mind of what an atheist looked like, and I don't look like that. People would be surprised. Some people might be surprised to know that I'm a feminist because people have been told that a feminist is a woman who, hates raising children, hates doing traditional feminine roles, and doesn't think women should do those things. That's not what a feminist is. A feminist is someone who thinks women should get to choose what they do. And I strongly believe that. Yeah, I'm living a trad wife life for sure, but I chose it. And you can't be good at something if you don't believe in it. You're not going to be a good mother if you didn't choose it because it was aligned with your values. You should have to choose. We will all be better at what we're doing it if we're doing it because we believe in it, rather than if we were told that we had to do it. That's the steel man definition of feminism. And it's a lot harder to take that one down. Whereas the straw man definition of feminism is, well, women who think that they're the same as men. But men and women are different. That's an easy argument to take down. But that's not how I would define feminism in a million years. Anyways. So when I said 2 weeks ago that I am an atheist, some of my viewers were quite surprised. And I have mentioned it before, but it was way back in the older videos, and most of you haven't been here that long. I don't talk about being an atheist just because it's one of those words that people have a real picture in their head of what an atheist is. And I don't want to have to argue with that picture. And people tend to hold on tight to those pictures. And so if people think I don't look like an atheist, they're going to try and argue with me to convince me that I should think the way that they think. And I don't want to do that, because when I have to defend my beliefs, it feels like I'm attacking your beliefs, and I don't want to attack your beliefs. Your beliefs are suiting you. They work for you. I don't want to take them away from you. I don't want to put doubt in your mind or anything like that. That is not my goal. I just want people to respect me like that. I don't want people to try and convince me that my beliefs are wrong, because I didn't just fall into being an atheist. I arrived here after years and years of careful consideration. But something that comes up a lot, something that's part of the picture that people have of atheists, is they really think that without God, without heaven and hell, you don't have any reason to be good. And this idea really ties in strongly with my parenting philosophy, with my approach to unschooling, where I don't use rewards or punishment to motivate my children, because that's really what heaven and hell is, right? It's, rewards and punishments for your behavior. And I also talked recently about cancel culture. That's the same thing. The idea behind cancel culture is that there should be rewards and punishments for your behavior. And I just don't believe in rewards and punishments for your behavior. So there's two different ways to get someone to be a good person. Extrinsic and intrinsic motivations. So extrinsic is like external and intrinsic is like internal. So extrinsic motivations is, if I do good things, I'll be rewarded, and if I do bad things, I'll be punished. So heaven and hell is extrinsic. Going to jail, that's extrinsic. Those are extrinsic motivations. And there are certain people that need that. There really are. There really are people who need they need to know what's in it for me. Why would I do the hard thing when I could do this easy thing over here? What's in it for me? They need rewards and punishments. But the problem with that is that if the rewards and punishments are not there, if a person thinks that they can get away with it, they have no reason to be a good person. That's where God is handy, because God can see all things and you can't get away with it. Intrinsic motivations is that I'm going to do good things because it's the right thing to do. And I want to do the right thing because I want to be a source of good in this world. Those are intrinsic motivations. And there are people like that on both sides too. There are Christians who do not need the threat of heaven and hell to be a good person. They're just going to be a good person because they want to be a good person. There are atheists who are like that too, who I just want to be a good person. I don't need anyone to know that I've been a good person. I don't need a reward for being a good person. The reward is liking myself. That is the reward. The reward is believing that I have value on this earth because I create positive change. That's the reward. I don't need anyone else to know that I've done something good. I don't need recognition. That's the ideal, because then even if there is no God, I still have a reason to be good. Even if there is no police watching me right now, I have a reason to be good. That's the ideal. And we don't live in an ideal world. So absolutely, it's important to have things like God and government to keep people in line who aren't capable of doing it on their own. But that sort of addresses the number one frustration that I have, the false impression that I have about, that people have about atheism, is they think that they have no reason to be a good person. And I think if religion was the answer to that, then the world would be very different than it is. Because honestly, for the vast majority of history, the vast majority of people were religious and horrible things still happened. So even the threat of punishment and the promise of reward in heaven and hell didn't keep people straight. So, it's just complicated. It's complicated. So that's the only real thing that I wanted to talk about in relation to my atheism. Actually, it's not. Another person made a comment that Christianity says that you serve God. Atheism says that you serve only yourself, or that you serve man. I would disagree with that one too. Respectfully. Not necessarily. Here's the thing. I can only speak to atheism as regards me, I don't know any other atheists. I have met a lot of people who say that they're an atheist, and then once you start asking them that they do actually believe in a God, they just don't believe in an organized religion. I don't know very many people who don't believe in some sort of higher power, who don't have some sort of spiritual sense that there is a plan, that there is someone overseeing all of this. I would say most people are religious or spiritual, but they're secular. So they don't go to church, or they don't actively practice their religion. They don't pray. They don't read the Bible. I don't really know any atheists. So the only atheist I can speak for is myself. But I believe that I am just one living organism on a massive living organism, and we are all symbiotically connected to each other. And when the whole is healthy, then I will be healthy. When the whole is functioning well, then I will function well. And when I I have to work to be a force of good in this world, and if we all together work to be a force of good in this world, then the world will be a better place and everyone on it will be healthier and happier. I don't believe in like a zero-sum game, that the more health and happiness you have, the less health and happiness I have. I believe that we grow together. It's not a competition, it's a symbiotic relationship. So my belief system is not in any way whatsoever about the self or even about mankind. It's about every single living creature on this planet. Again, I can't speak for other atheists, but I guess that's a stereotype that people have about atheism that I think is grossly inaccurate. I think I'm getting better at the being publicly judged thing when I get the negative comments on things. This is related to cancel culture too, and the punishment reward thing. When someone says something negative about me on a comment, when they disagree with me, I had someone call me a monster recently, which was interesting. They clearly weren't listening to what I was saying, but you know, we live in a world where listening skills are lacking. When people say that my opinion is wrong, I immediately feel shame, like, oh, am I an unworthy person? Am I a mistake? Did I, that's the immediate reaction. And then the next, this is all subconscious, right? And then the next sort of subconscious pushback is, no, they're a bad person. I'm a good person. They're the bad person. And I know a lot of the time that's when people start to reply on Facebook. When they get to that part, that's when the replies happen. I'm a bad person? No, you're a bad person. You're a bad person. We need to pause a little bit and go a few more steps, which is, what's the core of what I'm saying and what's the core of what you're saying, and what do we have in common, and where do we differ, and why do we differ? And because I don't think that anybody has their opinion because they want you to suffer or they want me to suffer. I think most people's opinions are honest, legit beliefs that that's how the world would be a better place. But maybe they just don't have all... It's complicated. Do you know what I mean? Life is complicated. And if you've only ever had this narrow experience, you think, oh, well, that's how life is and that's how the rules are. But if you've had this narrow experience over here, you think, oh, well, that's the way the life is. That's the way the rules are. But really, it's it's complicated. It's really complicated. And the only way we can ever come even close to meeting everyone's needs is to listen to each other's complicated story and try and take that into account, right? So I think the neat thing about posting my sort of innermost thoughts on the internet and sharing them with people who disagree with me, and then having them come at me and tell me that I'm a terrible person, and then spending the next week rolling it around in my head, trying to figure out what exactly is it that I think and what exactly is it that they're objecting to. In doing that, I become so much more aware of why I feel the way I feel and what truth is. So the more my beliefs are challenged, the better and more accurate my beliefs become. So I can understand why people are so fragile. I can understand why people get so defensive. But that's step one of the process. And the more we practice, the better we'll get. And I can see that that's where I want to head with. I am going to do a podcast. I've decided I am going to do a podcast. And this is the direction I want to go with the podcast, in this trying to have difficult conversations. I know people talk all the time about difficult conversations, and what they really mean is throwing controversial shit in your face and telling you to cope. That's not what I want to do. I want to pick apart. Yeah, sure, we can start with a controversial premise, sure, but let's pick it apart and see where are the strengths and where are the flaws, and how can we come to something that's actually constructive. I think that's what I want to do. And those of you who comment kind, thoughtful disagreements on my videos, God, I love you guys. I'm really enjoying this. I am really enjoying the opportunity to listen to your thoughts and consider them and contemplate them and try to find some universal truths between us, because I think there are some universal truths that the different religions of the history of the world have hit upon, and I think if we focus on the universal truths, that's where we find peace. Because you're never going to convert everybody on the planet to think the same way as you. It's just not going to happen. We're never all going to be Southern Baptist Christians. We're never all going to be Sunni Muslims. We're never all going to be atheists. We're never all going to be social democrats. We're all going to have different opinions. So what we need to do is find the universal truths that we can all sort of work with and move forward from there. And I gotta feel like I'm doing something, right? I see pain and anger and frustration everywhere I look. And my instinct is to hide from it. I mean, there's a reason I live in an off-grid tiny house in the middle of nowhere and I homeschool my kids. Like, I'm trying to create a bubble of safety as the world gets more and more vicious. But then I would never, while I'm healing, that's the right thing to do. But now that I'm feeling a little bit healed, I think the right thing to do is to start trying to actively make the world a better place. So, it sounds like hard work. As always, thank you very much for joining me. And hopefully next week, there will be less talking, because my kids hate these videos. Less talking and more pretty music and fancy B-roll shots. Take care, everyone. It's a pleasure as always. See you next time.